A very good morning to my students. Today I'll be doing the poem Daffodils by William Wordsworth. Now before I begin the poem, I must tell you a few words about William Wordsworth. He was born in 1770 and he was one of the very rare English poets, along with John Keats and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who brought on the romantic genre in English poems. Romantic genre means genre of poems that dealt with the very essence of nature, that brought a kind of transformation in the human life. They were nature poets. If you go through the poems of William Wordsworth, like the Prelude, or for that matter, the Tinted Abbey, and it is not that Lyrical Ballads was Wordsworth's first publication. He has started publishing poetry from 1793 onwards. And he also did An Evening Walk and descriptive sketches. That was also a nature poem as well. In the poem Daffodils, just through the beautiful, picturesque view of the golden flowers, daffodils, it brings the love of nature that a man can always harbor. Alright, so let's begin the poem now. It begins the poem on the note of, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. He's saying that the poet himself, William Wordsworth, he was roaming around aimlessly, just like a cloud floats over the hills and valleys when he sees a multitude of daffodils blooming together beside the lake. He saw a host of daffodils there, and that opened his box of imagination. Imagination where he was imagining himself floating as a cloud, and he was enjoying, cherishing. He was totally engrossed in that beautiful ambience of natural beauty. The breeze on the daffodils is making the flicker and dance. Therefore he says, a host of golden daffodils beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. The beautiful movement created by the breeze, talking about the daffodils, made the poet feel like he was totally enchanted and spellbound. Mantra mugdha ho gaya, Kavi. He was totally spellbound in that beautiful natural spell. Remember one thing, children, he was a nature poet. He wrote poetries about the beauty of nature and essence of nature that makes a human being, or rather that always makes a human being, transform his heart from a stage of melancholy or sadness to a stage of joyousness or joyousness or eternal happiness. So that's what he's saying in the first stanza. I wandered lonely as a cloud. I was roaming around as aimless as a cloud that floats over vales. Vales means valleys and hills. When all at once, when suddenly I saw a crowd, a host, I saw a crowd of daffodils, golden daffodils. They were looking more golden because of the reflection of the sunlight. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering. Fluttering means movement. Flickering beneath the trees, underneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. And where were the daffodils? Beside the lake, beneath the trees. So we'll be continuing with the second stanza. So go through the first stanza and remember one thing, he was a nature poet. This poem will make you time travel in the past or maybe in the present as well. It will make you open your box of imagination and travel to a place that was totally beautified with the essence of natural beauty. All the best. Continuing with the poem, The Daffodils, the poet goes on to say that he saw tens and thousands of daffodils, continuous as stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched a never-ending line along the margin of the bay. In these lines, the poet, delighted at such a blissful sight, compares the ceaseless line of daffodils to a Milky Way galaxy which stretches endlessly throughout the vast empty space. Milky Way, also known as Akash Ganga, is a galaxy to which our solar system belongs. Similarly, the continuous line of the flowers seemed to stretch on the shore as far as the eye could see. Each daffodil also seemed to be twinkling like a bright star. The poet goes on to say that they stretched a never-ending line along the margin of the bay. The poet says that he saw 10,000 at a glance. It can only be inferred that he merely guesses the number of the daffodils, for he could not have made a manual count of the flowers in such a short time. Just a hyperbole. What's hyperbole? When it's a kind of figures of speech, when you exaggerate something. Alright? Where he actually meant, then the number of daffodils was very huge. He says that along the margin of the bay, 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. These lines refer to the rhythmic, swift movement of the top part of the flowers with the petals which sway so sprightly or merrily. Sprightly refers to the sprite, which is an allusion to the playful little spirits who are thought to inhabit nature. The spiritful prowess of nature, where everything is very energetic, everything is full of activity, and he says that the nature was full of spirit, nature was full of energy, and the movement that the daffodils did display owing to the blowing breeze, it was beautiful, mesmerizing, and magnificent. The poet goes on to say that a poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought. The gentle movement of the waves in the breeze as they rise and fall causes the waves to dance. The daffodil seems to have been invested with a joyful human-like presence. The waves, in spite of their dance-like movement, could not induce as much happiness as the yellow flowers, that is the daffodils. Thus the waves were surpassed by the daffodils in their happiness. The poet begins the poem by saying that he was wandering lonely as a cloud. But now he says that a poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. This reflects a total transformation from his earlier mood of loneliness. Seeing such a jocund company, all his loneliness evaporates and joy fills his heart. Such a joyful company can only dispel all unhappiness. He was so engrossed and mesmerized with the natural beauty that he could not even get a chance or an opportunity to think. He was gazing all around, he was observing and seeing, and he was totally engrossed in the beauty of nature that he did not even get a chance to think what wealth the nature had brought to him. Wealth not in terms of money, wealth in terms of happiness. The wealth the speaker refers to is the experience which brought him a permanent kind of happiness. The rich experience later helped him to fill his pensive hours with immense happiness. He got the wealth of joy, he got the wealth of pleasure, not the wealth of money. Now we come to the last stanza of the poem, where the poet says that, for oft when on my couch I lie, in a vacant or in pensive mood, there flash upon the inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. The poet is trying to say that whenever he lies down on his couch in a blank or thoughtful mood after he came back from that beautiful locale of the daffodils and the beautiful natural beauty of the Warwickshire county, the images of the daffodils flash upon his imagination. It usually happened in his hour of solitude. Now, what is the bliss of the solitude? Bliss means a peaceful state of mind where you get the immense joy. The poet used to, solitude or loneliness always gives you an opportunity to think, and the poet used to get that opportunity in his solitude, and he used to make use of that solitude by thinking about the daffodils. The images of the daffodils had a magical effect on the poet as they filled the heart of the poet with pleasure. The poet goes on to say that during his moments of solitude, his subconscious mind always thought about the beautiful moments he spent in the company of the daffodils, and he always felt like he was back to his joyous self, where his heart, his subconscious state, his inner soul wanted to dance and flutter like the beautiful movement of the daffodils that was created by the blowing breeze. So whenever he was in a pensive mood, in a melancholic mood, in a solitude moment, he always thought about the daffodils, and he wanted to have a joyous moment which he had before. So this is the basic essence of the poem. The poet, being a nature poet, he's cherishing nature, he's cherishing the beauty of nature, he's cherishing how a person can enjoy in the company of nature in spite of being totally lonely. A man doesn't need a company, but the company of nature, because it's Mother Earth that has given birth to us, and that is the basic essence and the basic highlight of the poem. Alright, on that note, we'll end this entire paraphrasing of the poem now. Now I'll give you a brief summary of the critical analysis of the poem.